Hey everybody, JSquared John Jeremy here. It's our second round of questions here on the channel. Let's get right into it here. We've got 8 questions here and we've got some pretty good ones too, so let's get right into it. First question comes from Kalinus. Kalinus asks, would you ever consider doing a roleplay series for Star Trek Online? Well, let's talk a little bit about Star Trek Online. As many of you know, Star Trek Online is one of my favorite MMOs, simply because I am a huge fan of Star Trek. Now, it is an MMO in the sense that there are people that are playing it and it's, a massively multiplayer game. However, it's a very linear-based MMO. You start from, square one and you work your way up. There are no raids. There's no real end game, so to speak. I take that back. In the past, there were none of those things. More recently, the studio behind it, Cryptic Studios, has been working to include kind of end game content for those players who have already reached level 60. As of the time of this recording, they've just released the latest kind of mini expansion. I think it's called Mirror of Discovery. And in it, they've now included a progression system for those people that have reached level 60, which is the max level currently in game. Used to be that you'd have to max out your level, max out your skills, and then max out your skills for your ship, which go from tier 1 to tier 6 being the highest. So they've included now a progression system beyond that as well to kind of bring back some of the veteran players that really have nothing to do in the game now. So hopefully, they'll find the player base they need to continue. I like the game, I absolutely do. We may find ourselves back in it once again, but as far as a roleplay series for it goes, I don't think specifically in Star Trek Online it would be a good idea. Primarily because the game is so linear, there isn't really much we can do as far as roleplay goes. You have to do exactly what the game says. If it was more open-ended, if there were options to be made, then sure, it would make a great opportunity for some roleplay. I think about something like Star Trek Bridge Crew instead, where if that game itself was a little bit more open-ended and allowed for other modes like general exploration or even other scenarios that could lead to positive results besides just combat, then that would be the kind of game that I would want to roleplay with Star Trek in. Games that give you choices rather than games that bring you down one specific path. So, will we find ourselves in Star Trek Online again? Perhaps, but I doubt it will be in a roleplay series. Thanks for your question. Next question comes from William Barnes. William Barnes asks, do you think you'd consider a Let's Play of the game Sunless Sea? Now, Sunless Sea, for those that don't know, is kind of a narrative-driven game, a top-down view where you're set within the mists of London and that surrounding area. Now, it's kind of Cthulhu-esque based in that it's very dark and it's got that sort of feel to it where it's not quite horror, but it tends to cause some issues as far as, just general look and feel. I think it's a great opportunity for a game to record ourselves in. I would have to take a closer look at it. I only just briefly reviewed the Steam page there and what it was showcasing, but it seemed pretty interesting. Truthfully, I haven't really played it at all, so I'm not really sure about what to expect in it. I'll have to do some further research, but definitely a game that I'll keep on my radar. Thanks, Will. Next question comes from Alpaca Flinger. That's an interesting name. Alpaca Flinger asks, if you had a lightsaber, what design would it be? This is an interesting question because truthfully, I only think of a few designs for a lightsaber. So when I think of a lightsaber, I think that, you've got your singular blade, the standard bearer, I guess, for the Jedi Knight. You've also got the dual wield, which is pretty unique in that when I first saw it in Phantom Menace, I was blown away. I was like, wow, absolutely, that looks cool as hell. Actually, I'm most fond of the lightsaber that Count Dooku had, the kind of curved blade lightsaber. The blade itself wasn't curved, but the hilt was. I thought that was pretty unique and interesting, so I probably would go something similar to that. I also am a big fan of Christopher Lee, and would pretty much watch a lot of his movies just in general, so I guess I'll go based off that. Now, as far as the color is concerned, well, I mean, I would prefer a mix of colors. One thing I like about Star Wars: The Old Republic is that in the game you're able to change the color of your lightsaber if you have one, and it does allow for cross combination of coloring. There can be an inner color and then an outer color for the blade itself, so I'd probably do a combination of the colors that we have here on the channel, blue and purple. That'd kind of be my design. I'm curious to hear what your design would be though, Alpaca Flinger, and anybody else who's watching right now, so maybe that can be today's general question for everybody here. What would your lightsaber design be? Next question comes from Wicked Kangaroo. Wicked Kangaroo asks, will you do a fully custom playthrough of CK2 with animals replacing humans now that it's capable without mods? Well, for those of you who don't know what he's referencing, in Crusader Kings 2 now, as of the Holy Fury update in 3.0, there's actually an Easter egg in the game where if you start a brand new campaign and you click a few of the different menu options while you're starting that campaign, there's a trigger that you can start where it actually converts everybody from humans to animals. And there are different settings for that as well. You can have it be a mixture of humans and animals, which is really awkward when it comes down to the marriaging aspect of it, but I guess. And there's full animals. So literally you can have a kingdom of cows or a kingdom of dragons. I think my favorite is the hedgehog kingdom, from what I've seen. Oh, you cute suckers. Will I do a full campaign on them? I mean, it's certainly a possibility, Wicked Kangaroo. We're just returning to Crusader Kings 2 and to the channel as a whole, so I'm definitely looking for more ideas on it. I don't think we're done with Crusader Kings 2 even when we're done with this current campaign for Holy Fury. I think there's plenty of life left in the game, and the fact that now the game is UI scalable means that for me, it's a great opportunity for us to kind of explore different options now as well. Next question comes from High Rock, and High Rock asks, what's the reasoning behind the sneak peeks in the latest CK2 series? Aren't they literally spoilers? So I'm going to answer this question here with kind of a look behind the scenes for the channel. One of the reasons why I decided to go with a few, I guess you would call them spoilers, at the beginning of a video is to entice a viewer to remain, basically, to find out exactly what's going on within a reel, so to speak. And the reason for that is simple. The idea is to keep that viewer watching for as long as I possibly can. YouTube's algorithm, the way it's based, is primarily through watch time. The longer a person watches my content, the more my content is promoted, and the more attention my channel gets down the line in the future. So you'll see things like my videos being offered to you as suggestions for future content to watch. You'll see my subscription feed more frequently if you are subscribed, simply because the watch time for my channel is increased and your personal watch time is increased as well. So, I mean, no bones about it. I mean, it is a way for me to try to entice a viewer to stay around. That is just something that I've decided to do, and truthfully, it is working. Watch time is up, subscriptions are up, and it seems like we're doing okay. So I haven't really found a reasoning against it yet. Plus, it's pretty entertaining. Like, I think when I look at the videos, you know, after I've recorded them and put them through the editor, I think that sometimes they are pretty entertaining. That little snippet right at the start, and then it goes right into the intro reel. So I expect to continue to do that. Will I do it for other series as well? Probably, but I'll have to figure out a good way to do it for them as well, and how I want to position it that way. So I hope that answers your question, High Rock, and I hope you don't think too ill of me. Moving on to the next question, we've got No Gober Boy 13, Now, No here, he's been watching for a while, and truthfully, I'm not so sure if he is or isn't a bot. I think I've debated it with myself on this for quite a little bit, but his question to us is, are there any games in the past that are currently incomplete that you plan on completing or making a conclusion to how they might have ended? And of course, he's referencing the fact that we sometimes leave our series incomplete. And that's simply because, we drop off from activity on the channel. So do we have any plans to complete any series? So let's talk about that for a little bit. As we've discussed in the past, when I get busy, I tend to drop off from YouTube. And because I drop off from YouTube, obviously there are many series that go incomplete. Many, different types of games, mostly, more recently, MMOs, which is kind of why I've decided, at least for the time being, to stay away from them, just so that I'm able to ensure that the channel's got my full commitment, and that moving forward we won't have such a huge issue with that. Now, as far as prior series go, is there a potential to return to some of them? Yes, because naturally they're MMOs and it's easy to just simply jump back into a character you already have. Harder for games that we've already kind of worked on that aren't like that. Take, for example, I don't know, Deus Ex. We had at one point done or started to do a small series on Deus Ex before it was stopped, and it was stopped for a couple reasons. One was I was getting quite a bit of content getting claimed at the time, and then I just grew tired of the fact that the work that I was putting into it wasn't being rewarded. So we stopped that series. Now, would I ever return to it? Well, I'd have to test to see if the content was still going to be claimed right away, but potentially, I guess, maybe. I try not to think of the past so much anymore, simply because I know that I have burned bridges with many of the viewing audience for those games, and I do apologize for that, but I can't spend my time looking backward on the stuff. I'm proud of the content we have put out. There are over 2,000 videos of content that's available on my channel for people to enjoy. I still remember the feeling I got when I first started recording back, in 2011 with Silent Hunter 5. And, that's the kind of feeling that I want for myself all the time. And I feel like I'm in a good place right now to continue that moving forward. So you can't see me right now, but I'm actually moving my hands quite a lot. And that's kind of how I talk. So if you see me shake a little bit or gesture in some way, know that that's because I'm moving my hands while I'm doing that. So I see myself in the video camera just kind of bobbing and weaving a little bit. So I wanted to let you guys know exactly why I was doing that. But it's an honest question. It's a great question, No Gober Boy. Like I said, I hope to not do that in the future, and that's why we've committed, at least for the time being, for this Crusader Kings 2 campaign for now. In the future, if we have more time on our hands, who knows? This schedule is working out for me pretty well, and we've got a good backlog of content ready to go, so you may see additional content from me in the future. But I do want to be prepared myself to ensure that content is going to be completed before I start uploading it now. Thank you for the question. Next question comes from ManBand20. And ManBand20 asks, I know you are doing a CK2 playthrough right now, but will we ever make the great journey back to Westeros and put a Jeremy on the Iron Throne? Hey, who can say no to more CK2 first off? That's just, that's my game. And as far as the Game of Thrones mod is concerned, well, as of the time of this recording, the latest update to the Game of Thrones mod, that it now makes it compatible with Holy Fury, has just been released. So I haven't even had the opportunity yet to check out the latest content additions for that mod, but I'm pretty sure you can bet that there'll be at least one more grand campaign in Westeros. This is the final season, obviously, the year of the final season for the Game of Thrones show, and we've still got at least 2 more books to go from George R.R. Martin when it comes to the novelization or the novels themselves. So I would expect to continue to see Game of Thrones content on the channel. And who knows, maybe even other Game of Thrones content as well. I mean, there's still the Telltale Games series that we never have played. There are other Game of Thrones games as well. I might consider making, the month that Game of Thrones, the final season, is launched, to be like a Game of Thrones month for the channel as well. I think I'm pondering on that, but I think it's kind of where I'm leaning right now. But great question. As far as it's specifically to Westeros, I don't know. I mean, we've never really played so much in Essos before. There's plenty of other cultures that are out there, and plenty of different timelines to play around in. But definitely, I would suspect at least one more playthrough in the Game of Thrones mod. And our next question, and I believe it is our last question, comes from PMAT2836. And PMAT asks, I love space games like Eve and Elite, but I find them lacking that something to be definitive. If you made a space game, what would you include or make different than what is out? Great question, PMAT. So I think that the biggest miss out there in today's market when it comes to space games is the idea that space is vast and there is so much to do in it. It should feel lifelike. It should feel as though you are a part of a larger story, and that you should see everybody all around you. There should be a ton of interaction if possible. Eve somewhat gets it right. My problem with Eve, is that you're always in your ship, and you are always going to be in your ship. And they tried at one point to kind of lean away from that. Didn't work out. The station keeping sort of thing. But I understand what they're going for, but my personal preference would be to include a much more vast story and the possibility for NPC interactions far greater than what they have in Eve. Elite goes the opposite way. Elite is kind of like a choose your own adventure sort of thing. You're out there in the vast wilderness, but my problem with Elite is that it's basically a slog from one journey to the next. You warp to one location, you deliver your goods, that's it, you're done. You want to hunt pirates? Okay, go ahead and hunt pirates. But there's no, at least when I played Elite, and it could have changed by now. For those of you who have played Elite more recently, let me know. But when I played Elite, there was no, step 1, step 2, step 3 as far as like your story goes. It was just kind of like, okay, you're gonna amass credits, and when you amass your credits, you're gonna buy another ship. When you buy another ship, rinse, repeat, that sort of thing. So there was no reason why you were doing it. Games need a reason. Players need a reason to play, I feel. And my reason to play a lot of games is because of the story potential, and whether it is the story that the game creates for me, like in games, let's say, for example, the BioWare games like Mass Effect and Dragon Age, or the stories that I create for myself in a game like Crusader Kings 2. There needs to be that potential for a story to be told. And that's what I feel most of the space games out there are missing right now. Now, I will say that the one game that I feel may hit it, may not hit it, I don't know. It's still years in the making, is going to be Star Citizen. I have been keeping an eye on that game, and I will continue to keep an eye on that game. It has the potential to be exactly what I want. It's got the single-player campaign, and it's got the persistent universe of the multiplayer, and there's a potential for that to be exactly what I'm looking for. But that's years down the line, and who knows if it's ever going to get there. I certainly hope so. I have personally put money into it. I hope it will get there, but can't say for certain. But great question, PMAT. And that's it for our questions for this episode. Like we said earlier, the question for the viewers watching is if you had your own lightsaber, how would you have it designed? That's your question there. And then, of course, post any questions, any new questions you may have for me in the comments section below, and we will look forward to answering them next week. Until next time, this is JSquared John Jeremy signing out, saying so long and take care.